mastermind. All right. All right, well, everyone, thank you for joining us this evening for another one of our Sabrewing Nature Tours virtual programs. We're excited to have everyone here. Tyler's given our first couple programs, and this is the first one that I will be doing. If everyone could mute themselves, if you're not already muted, we'd appreciate that during the program, but we'll have time for questions at the end. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about choosing the Central American country that's right for you. As we kind of started talking about before I got the program started, I've been asked this a lot, especially when I'm out at birding festivals. And since we're not out at festivals right now, I thought I'd do a program to try to help people answer that question for when we can start to travel again. For those of you that don't know me, I am the owner of Sabrewing Nature Tours along with my business partner, Brian Zwiebel. I live in Carmel, Indiana with my wife, who's in this picture with me at Bird Fair in England, as well as my 3-month-old daughter. I am the president of the Amos Butler Audubon Society, and I'm on the board of directors of the Black Swamp Bird Observatory as well. So I'm pretty heavily involved in the birding world, both from tour leading side as well as the not-for-profit side. But today I'm here to talk about Central America. And when we're talking about Central America, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the countries between Mexico and Colombia. So we've got Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, and Panama. And I didn't circle El Salvador and Nicaragua because I'm not going to include those in the presentation tonight. They have not been heavily visited in the recent years by birders, and overall, although both are maybe starting to get a little bit safer, they are not the safest countries to be visiting right now, so we're going to take those out of the program for the evening. So why even go to Central America to start with? Well, to begin with, the number of species in Central America is pretty incredible. In the ABA area, which is what the United States is in, which is the US, Canada, recently added Hawaii to it as well, we've had a little over 1,100 species seen all time. Central America that I just showed you has over 1,200, so a significantly smaller area with even more birds. You can see the breakdown by country here is quite impressive, anywhere from 589 in El Salvador up to over 1,000 species seen in Panama now, which is really pretty amazing when you think of the size of the country. You also see that some of the countries have endemics, and although the endemic lists look very low, the reason that it looks so low is that many of these countries share what would be endemics if you only looked at Central America. Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras and El Salvador share a bunch of endemics up in northern Central America, and then Costa Rica and Panama, as well as a little bit into Nicaragua, share quite a few amongst themselves as well. So I'm going to get started up here in northern Central America. And I'm going to start in Belize. So Belize is a wonderful country to start your adventures in Central America. Sorry, I'm flipping my notes here because I got behind on my flipping. So Belize is the smallest of the countries in Central America. And you can see I'm using Indiana here because that's where I live to give an idea of size for each one of the countries. You can see this is significantly smaller than Indiana to go to Belize. There's very few people living in Belize with only 375,000 people. It's not very densely populated. Their official currency is the Belizean dollar, but it is tied to the US dollar at 2 for 1. So it's very consistent with their currency. Technically, their official language is English, and it is widely spoken in Belize, unlike the rest of Central America. But they also speak Spanish and a version of Creole that is very confusing when you first hear it. So not everyone is speaking English, but most can if you are traveling in the country. Tourism is also the second largest industry in Belize, and birders are making up an ever-increasing portion of that. So why go to Belize for birds? As I mentioned in the first slide on Belize, low population density is one of the really good things that Belize has, and it's because of that low population density, there's a lot of birding areas within the country. With such a low population density, they haven't destroyed all of their natural habitat, and so there's lots of natural areas that we can go birding in. There's several wonderful Mayan sites, so you add a little bit of culture when you're in Belize. One of my favorites is a place called La Milpa, which, in addition to being a great lodge and wonderful birding, is a mostly unexcavated Mayan ruin. And it's a pretty incredible thing to be able to be at a Mayan ruin early in the morning looking for birds and knowing that history, but still not having the hundreds and hundreds of people around like you would at Tikal, which we'll talk about when we get to Guatemala. I feel that Belize is also a great introduction to birding in Central America. It's not so overwhelming. You get to have a chance to study and learn the bird families that we're not familiar with here in the United States that help you as you continue birding through Central America, as well as making a first trip into South America, which can be extremely overwhelming. In addition to La Milpa that I talked about being a wonderful birding area, the amazing Crooked Tree Wetlands is without a doubt just one reason to visit Belize. Even if you went nowhere else and only could go to Crooked Tree, it's an absolutely incredible place. Hosts an impressive number of water birds, especially the jabiru, which is a very large stork. And it's a fantastic place to see the difficult to find agami heron. My last trip to Crooked Tree, we had 5 agami herons flying back and forth across one of the rivers there as a pack of white-nosed coatis ran along the shore, scaring them out. And we followed them down this river as the coatis ran along, watching them just fly back and forth across the river. It was a wonderful sight. In addition to that, in just 3.5 hours in the boat at Crooked Tree, we had 90 species of birds. So it was a wonderful morning. In addition to Crooked Tree and La Milpa, there are good birding lodges throughout the country, which is very important for birders. Because tourism is so important to the country, you can see that their lodges are up to a standard for birders to stay at. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to just move among the birding lodges and visit all these incredible properties. So some of the great things to see in Belize are jabiru. I photographed this one last time I was there. Yellow-headed parrot is relatively range restricted and often found in Belize. Ocellated turkeys, which are fun to see. And we're going to move on to the next country. So we're going to move on to Guatemala. And so Guatemala is a little bit bigger, as you can see, a little bit bigger than Indiana overall, quite a bit bigger than Belize. But you can see there's a lot more people. 16.5 million people in Guatemala, which is quite a few. Their official currency is the quetzal, so you can see that birds are important, seeing as that their currency is named after one of the big-time birds of the country. The official language is Spanish, but there are 21 different Mayan languages also spoken throughout the country, which is really amazing. You can have people, their common language is Spanish, but almost everyone in the country that is of Mayan descent speaks one of the native Mayan languages. They're a major producer of coffee, and I find their coffee to be absolutely fantastic. I always bring a lot home whenever I'm down there. Tourism is their second largest industry. And one of the things that makes Guatemala extremely special is that they have more than 30 volcanoes in the mountains of Guatemala. 3 of them are currently active as well, which adds quite a bit of excitement when you can see active volcanoes as you travel through the country. So why Guatemala for birds? 150 of their species are regional endemics from southern Mexico and northern Central America. So that's a lot of birds that can only be seen within this small area that includes southern Mexico, parts of Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. Because of the mountains and the differing elevations, there's easy access to a variety of habitats, which greatly increases the diversity of birds. As I mentioned, all the volcanoes, makes for incredible scenery in the mountainous part of the country. Every turn when you're in the mountains is another stunning view. They have several wonderful lodges as well. Places like Los Torales, Guacamayas, and several other lodges at Tikal and many others throughout the country that we stay at. And what I find so special about Guatemala is the amazing cultural experiences that you can have within the country. It's much more than in the rest of Central America, in my opinion, because the Mayan culture is still extremely prevalent. And if you don't make time to fit in some of this Mayan culture while you're in Guatemala, I think you've kind of missed out on the essence of Guatemala. It's very evident around great birding areas, especially places like Atitlan. So it's very easy to fit some of the Mayan culture into your visit to Guatemala. In addition to the Mayan culture, the UNESCO World Heritage City of Antigua is a must-see and very close to great birding as well. Typically one of the first places most people stop as they get into the country. Guatemala is famous for many birders due to this species here, horned guan. What used to be one of the worst hikes in all of the world for finding one specific bird has turned into a much easier experience as new locations for the horned guan have been found. You don't have to make the classic death march up the volcano that so many older birders that visited Guatemala years ago remember. But it's such a cool bird to see. Pink-headed warbler is also highly sought after, and a lot of times when I'm leading a tour in Guatemala, one of the favorite birds of the trip of several of the clients. This is a bird that a lot of people don't know about. This is the Goldman's warbler, and a lot of people don't know about it right now because it's a subspecies of our yellow-rumped warbler. You can see the resemblance a little bit here. Most people do believe that this will be split off into its own species in the near future, which will actually give Guatemala its first endemic species to the country. Fulvous owls are rather easy in parts of Guatemala. The azure-rumped tanager is another one that's highly sought after in Guatemala and very easy, relatively easy to see at Los Torales Reserve. Orange-breasted falcons are another sought-after species of Guatemala, most easily seen up at Tikal, where they're actually nesting on top of one of the temples. This has caught something. I don't think I've ever actually been able to identify what it was that it caught because it's torn out all the feathers before we got to the pictures there. And this is a picture of Tikal. And this Mayan ruin has been pretty much fully excavated. It is a wonderful sight to see and an amazing location for birding as well. And when we go, we always have a local guide, as you need to at Tikal. But we found one that also kind of likes the birds as well. So he's not surprised when in the middle of a sentence, everyone yells out a bird name and everyone stops paying attention to him and looks for the bird we found. But it's an amazing place to see, and spending a full day here is well worth the cultural and birding experience. This is the town of Antigua that I mentioned, and you can see local Mayan artisans all lined up along the cobblestone streets of Antigua, selling the incredible handicrafts, great souvenirs to take home. Also in Antigua during Holy Week leading up to Easter, if you happen to be birding in the country, then it's one of the most popular sites in the country, and they lay out amazing floral arrangements on the streets that the parades then go over. And I was there one time while these were going on, and it was an absolutely incredible experience that I would encourage everyone to see once. All right, we're going to move on now to Honduras. Here, the largest country in Central America. And Honduras, as you can see, quite a bit bigger even than Guatemala, but has less people, just a little over 9 million people in Honduras. Their official currency is the lempira. They speak Spanish as well, just like Guatemala, and are a major producer of coffee and have very good coffee as well. Tourism is growing within Honduras as their security situation has calmed down after years of unrest. One of the other things Honduras is known for is sharing La Mosquitia, which is a huge rainforest area in the northeast part of the country that also goes down into Nicaragua. It's the largest wilderness area in all of Central America. Unfortunately, not really a birding area because it is so inaccessible. So why go to Honduras for birds? Well, first off, they have one endemic, the Honduran emerald. That's a hummingbird that can only be found in some of the dry forests within Honduras. So that's a great reason to go and get the one endemic. being the largest country in Central America means lots of variation in habitat and elevations. They're still in the mountains. They have coast. They have tons and tons of different habitats to visit. You can add in a visit to Copan ruins, which is a fantastic ruin that is considered to be the Paris of the Mayan world because of all the art that was put into the buildings there in Copan. Wonderful place to visit. You can also add in a visit to the Bay Islands, which have some special birds and are beautiful and are very different than the rest of the country, but mostly known for their diving and snorkeling. The thing with Honduras is more difficult to travel in than the other countries that I'm speaking about this evening. Safety concerns are always an issue when I'm offering tours here, but it can be done safely and you can have an amazing trip in Honduras as long as you do it carefully. So some of the special birds there for Honduras. Wow, jumped ahead on me. Keel-billed toucan. This is the Honduran emerald, the only endemic. This is keel-billed motmot, great place to find it. And we've got a great view here of Unbelievable Falls. All of a sudden my program is skipping ahead on me. Unbelievable Falls here, which is part of just a beautiful hike with lots of great birds on it. Here we are heading out into one of the great wetlands on the coast to see wetland species. And we've got, this is out in the Bay Islands. This is not all the way out. This is an island about halfway out called Cayos Cochinos. And it is a fantastic place to look for birds as well as just relax in some beautiful habitat and enjoy these islands. All right, so we're going to move on now. We're going to skip over Nicaragua and El Salvador, and we're going to go down to Costa Rica and Panama. I'm going to start with Costa Rica here. So there's Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a mid-sized country for Central America. There's a little under 5 million people. Official currency is the colon, and they do speak Spanish as well. Tourism is the #1 largest industry in Costa Rica, and it's very obvious to anyone that has been there that tourism is big business for Costa Rica. Another thing for benefit of Costa Rica is that they have the best infrastructure in Central America. Their roads are better. They've been set up for ecotourism significantly longer, and it shows. So that leads into my first point here on why to go birding in Costa Rica. Their long-running focus on birding and ecotourism has led to it being an extremely easy and wonderful country for visiting birders. There are an amazing number of fantastic guides throughout the country, not just at the national level, but at each individual lodge. You can tend to find someone that really knows the area at every single lodge or within every region of Costa Rica. And because of the focus on ecotourism, they have an incredibly large selection of lodges. Unlike many of the places I've talked about where if you're going to go to a certain area, there's one lodge that all the birders go to, and you move on to the next area and there's one lodge that all the birders go to. In Costa Rica, I tend in each area to have a favorite, a second favorite, a third favorite, and sometimes a fourth favorite lodge in each area. So it's great to have so many choices and makes it a lot easier on the visiting birder. Costa Rica, because of their focus on ecotourism, also made a very early attempt and were very successful at creating a large number of protected areas. They have many, many national parks, and there are many, many areas throughout the country to go birding. It's an incredibly well-protected country from a wildlife perspective. As I mentioned, their infrastructure is rather good, making it easy to get around within the country, and traveling from lodge to lodge is not difficult as it is in some of the other areas. They are a small country, but they have huge diversity. If you remember on that first slide with the number of species I showed you, they have an incredible number of birds compared to their size. And as I mentioned earlier, they have amazing local guides throughout the country, both national and Diego, our guide, was going to be on this call. I'm not sure if he's here because he wasn't on when I started talking. He leads for us all around the country, but we also always have local guides that help us out from the lodges as well. And they have just fantastic people guiding in Costa Rica. The bird on the side here is a coppery-headed emerald, one of Costa Rica's endemic species. The unspotted saw-whet owl used to be almost a mythical creature among birders, and has become slightly easier to see over the last few years as more and more has been learned about it. And a lot of that research is being done in Costa Rica. And we are proud from Sabrewing to be supporting that research as well by donating transmitters to help track these birds from some of our tours that we lead as a donation from proceeds from some of the tours. And seeing this species and being able to take people to see the species is now pretty special, and Costa Rica is definitely a great place for that. Black-cheeked ant tanager is another one of the Costa Rican endemics. This is from the far south of the Osa Peninsula. Yellow-billed cotinga, there's a well-known spot to see this species in southern Costa Rica as well. Fantastic bird. It's a great country to see king vultures. This picture was taken at a blind in northern Costa Rica where they put out a carcass and the king vultures come in and you're able to photograph them through a blind. And all right, we're going to move on to Panama. I'm flying through this program tonight. I don't know. It's gone very quick. So talking about Panama here. You can see Panama is a little funny shape, so it doesn't match up necessarily so well to that picture. It is kind of a medium-sized country as well, only about 4 million people. One of the very interesting things with Panama is their official currency is actually the US dollar, so you don't have to exchange money going to Panama at all. It's a rather interesting and nice, easy aspect of traveling to Panama. Their official language is Spanish as well. Tourism is a major industry and growing again, just like it has been in several of the other countries. And the Darién province, which is on the Colombian border, is one of the most unexplored places in all of Central America. It has recently become a little more accessible, but it definitely feels like one of the more wild places in all of Central America still. So why Panama for birds? Well, the crossover of Central and South American and South American species is greatest in Panama. It is the connector for Colombia. So you do get a great crossover of birds coming from farther north in Central America, as well as things from South America, leading to a great diversity within the country. As you travel from the west on the Costa Rican border, you're picking up a lot of species that are shared with just endemics with Costa Rica and Panama in the Talamancas. As you move through the country towards the canal, you start to pick up more and more birds that you might consider to be more of a South American species. And by the time you're in the Darién, you're picking up birds that only barely get into Central America there in Panama from South America. Overall, Panama also has fantastic infrastructure. Very easy country to get around. It used to be that getting into the Darién was extremely difficult. That road has been improved greatly over the last couple years. And getting around the rest of the country is quite easy as well. Traffic's crazy, but that's just kind of how it is. As I said, for such a small country, they have huge diversity. Over 1,000 species have been seen in Panama. For a country that's about the size of Indiana, quite amazing. Panama has many great lodging options as well, not quite as many as Costa Rica, but still some incredible choices. Many people have heard about the Canopy family of lodges that we have worked with for a long time as well. They have the unbelievable Canopy Tower in the Canal Zone outside of Panama City. For anyone that doesn't know about that lodge, it is a birding lodge that has been put into an old U.S. radar facility that still has the radar ball on top, but has all the technology taken out. So you stay in the cylinder of the radar tower, and then you are able to bird on a walkway around the top, which is just incredible, putting you at canopy level looking out over the forest. They also have a lodge in El Valle towards the western part of the country, and they are one of the places starting to help open up the Darién as well, because they have the newer canopy camp out there. This is an African tent camp style lodge, giving you great access out to that part of the country. Another wonderful lodge is called Tranquilo Bay. That's up in Bocas del Toro near the Costa Rican border, but on the Caribbean side. And that offers amazing birding as well as a really nice Caribbean vibe as well. Another great reason to go to Panama is to explore the remote Darién province. There's tons and tons of birds to see, but by far the most requests we get for the Darién is that they have active harpy and sometimes crested eagles nests. This is one of the best places in the entire world to see these species because the harpy eagles have been consistently nesting over the last few years. Depending on where they're nesting, it can be quite the activity, quite the hike potentially, but everyone always tends to think it is worth it. My last time out to see the harpy eagle, I know someone that was with me is on this call, but I think we've left the lodge at about 4 o'clock in the morning, had to take a car to a boat down the river, get back in some cars, and then after about 30 minutes in the cars, do about an hour, hour and a half hike into the nest. So it can be quite the process to get there and back. I don't think we got back to the lodge until about dinner time, but we all had incredible views of nesting harpy eagles. So it's a great adventure of a day to go see the harpies and sometimes crested eagle nests in the Darién. So great birds from Panama include great jacamar, crimson crested woodpecker, a nice one to see in the canal zone area. Southern lapwings, they're continuing to expand north, but they're quite prevalent around Panama City. And then the harpy eagle. This is not the best photo, but this was shot through a scope. This is digiscoped of the female harpy eagle up on the nest in the Darién. Panama is also a great place for sloths. If you're into mammals, Costa Rica and Panama especially are really good for sloths and monkeys. And like I kind of showed in Guatemala, we visit some villages within Panama. This is in the Darién, and these are local crafts within this village in the Darién. And you can see the incredible work that these artisans do. And this is very, very important to the local communities. What we found out about this village and these crafts is that they've started a women's collective, and everything within this project is controlled by the women of the village. All of the money is going mostly back into the education of their kids and the building of the school in their community. It's allowing kids an opportunity that they've never had before, potentially to go into Panama City for more schooling. And it's been a pretty incredible transformation within the village. When my group was here, I luckily shot this before everyone got a hold of everything they wanted to buy, because this table was mostly empty. And I think the women probably had to go straight back to work for the next group whenever they were coming, because there was almost nothing left on this table by the time my group got done with it, which was fantastic. It ended up, I calculated about what everyone spent, and the village ended up having about almost $1,000 spent on these crafts just by our group. And if you think about the number of groups that might be visiting, that can make a huge impact on this community. All right, I went through that extremely fast, but I will open it up for questions if anyone has any. All right, I don't think anyone has any questions. It's quiet.
Rob?
Yeah.
Which location do you think would be best for photography?
The best setup for photography is Costa Rica. They've been catering to photographers for longer than the other countries, and they have really good feeder setups in many locations, drawing in a great variety of birds, and much easier photography options than the other countries. After that, it's probably Belize.
Okay, yeah, because one of the things that I was kind of intimidated with, I've never traveled internationally for birds, is just getting into a heavy rainforest situation and having trouble actually seeing the birds or getting a good look at them. And that was sort of the biggest hurdle for me to get over, considering a trip down there.
Yeah, the best way to do it is when they have great feeding stations, and some of them are well set up for photography and some aren't. There's many feeding stations in all the lodges, but there are definitely specific places within Costa Rica where they are set up to cater to photographers.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. With no
I have one more actually.
Yeah.
Since I'm the only one chirping here. As far as security concerns, which one would be best for that? That was something that my wife brought up when I told her I was going to sit on your presentation tonight.
Yeah, we see the least security concerns with Costa Rica, Panama, and Belize typically. Guatemala still is holding on to a bit of its reputation. They went through a very rough civil war, even leading into the early 90s, and that's kind of stuck with people a lot. I've never had any issues there personally or with my groups. But it definitely I get more questions about security there, and then I get the most questions about security about Honduras. They are not well represented in the news, and some of it's true, some of it's not so true. We've not run into issues there either, but it's definitely those two are the ones I get a lot more questions about.
Rob, I have a question.
Sure.
So, on a week-long trip to any of these, what number of species typically do you pick up? I know it varies per country, but on average.
On a week-long trip?
Okay, fine, a 10-day trip.
I'm trying to think what our last ones were. A week-long trip, a lot of times you're going to get between 250 and 300, I believe, on a lot of these.
That's pretty legit.
Yeah, it's good. All of them have a lot of great birds to offer. A lot of the trips average 7 to 14 days, so it kind of depends on what we're doing on what the total species list is going to be.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? All right. Just want to remind everyone that we do have a few more programs coming up in the next few weeks. Next Wednesday, Tyler is going to be talking about the magic of Arctic birding in northern Alaska. That'll be September 16th at 8 p.m. Then the week after that, on September 23rd, also at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'll be talking with Diego Quesada, who I mentioned earlier, who is our local guide in Costa Rica. He and I will be co-presenting on birding in Costa Rica. On October 7th, I'll be joined by our local guide in Guatemala, Minora Ovando, who will be talking about birding throughout Guatemala. That'll be October 7th at 8 p.m. And then Brian Zwiebel will be talking about the magnificent behavior of shorebirds on October 21st at 8 p.m. So if you're interested in any of those, please let us know. We can send the Zoom invite out to all of those as we get closer to the event. I'll also mention that we've been doing trivia nights, and we will have those both in September and October. September on the 30th, October on the 28th. So if you're into trivia, get a team, and we've been having a lot of fun with these each month. So get a team and join us for trivia night. But that is all I have tonight, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on another program.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.